And that's kind of what today's topic is about, right? Changing that. Okay, so that was stupid. So the section that you're on is about actually changing behavior. So we are going to go over again positive and negative reinforcement because before we get into all this stuff, there's a really famous behavior analyst that once taught me something about changing behavior. Either reducing it or increasing it, whatever it is. And it's sort of a visual thing, so hopefully the camera will capture this. But if you want to change behavior, you grab them by the function, right? You get my point? You grab them by the function, you squeeze, you twist, you do whatever you need to do to get what you want, right? So, and that sounds a bit vulgar, but it's true, all right? Nothing about that statement is incorrect behaviorally or scientifically. You grab them by the function. There might be a problem with the accent, but whatever. The point being, it's simple. When you find out the function of behavior, and we've talked about function already, right? So we talked about the function being what's reinforcing it, what's maintaining that behavior. So that should be your focus. Grab them by the function. You want behavior to change. You want to change yourself. Figure out what the reinforcers are. So I'm going to use an example for you on a popular topic. So smoking, right? That kind of smoking, not smoking hot. No, you like smoking cigarettes, right? So I used to smoke a lot of cigarettes, and I mean a lot. I'm in a shop working on a car. Trust me, it's taken a lot of years of making this not predict cigarette smoking, okay? So this is all about function, baby. I'm not going to give any free advertising to anybody. So anyway, sorry, totally beside the point, just kind of reflection here, and I saw the mirrored tape. Anyway, whatever. So grabbing people by the function, talking about reinforcement, talking about cigarette smoking. So cigarette smoking behavior, it's a behavior, right? So if we want to reduce that behavior, we have to worry about what the reinforcer is. So what's the reinforcer for smoking cigarettes? There's a whole bunch of them, but the primary one is actually the delivery of nicotine. So how do you stop the nicotine from being delivered into your system? How can you smoke a cigarette and stop the nicotine? You can't. It's impossible. So you can't remove the reinforcer for that. So we have to do other things, right? So we have to focus on what the other functions of cigarette smoking are. There's a social function, there's escape functions. I get out of work, I'm gonna go take a smoke break. There's all sorts of things that go along with cigarette smoking that we wanna try to target. So one of the things we used to say, hey, you're going to go through cigarette smoke, you want to reduce the amount of cigarettes you smoke, then the first thing you need to do is go outside with your friends while you're at work and take your smoke break without smoking. That's all we want to do, just one small change. Can you get through that one smoke break without smoking? Because now we're at least removing that social reinforcer that's associated with smoking, and we're associating it with just being outside with your friends. Right? So the social reinforcer, hey, we're going to take a smoke break. When I first started quitting smoking, I was like, I'm going to take a smoke break, but I wouldn't go smoke. I'd just go hang out with the people that were smoking. Sounds kind of stupid, and it was really hard to avoid that cigarette during that time, but it worked, right? It reduced that piece. So then in the context of friends having a smoke break or colleagues having a smoke break, no, that the desire wasn't there. The context, the antecedent still was, but we changed the desire for the cigarette. Now, the cigarettes are a bad example for a couple of reasons, primarily because the nicotine is automatically reinforcing. So we have to get into an extinction procedure with that. Now, understanding extinction procedures gets a little confusing in this context, so we're not going to go there yet. We're going to go there in another video, okay? So I'm going to move on to something else. So let's look at this, all right? So this is a 1985 Corolla. My daughter and I are working on it. It's going to be her first car. So I got me some sandpaper. I'm just roughing it up. The paint's actually in pretty good condition. I just want to see what's underneath it to see if there's anything that I need to fix or any major damage or things like that. I'm going to use I'm going to use the right type of primers to not have to worry about getting it completely stripped down to bare metal. So I'm on a scrape away, and I'm doing my thing, right? So it's working. I'm sanding. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's nothing too bad. But damn, I'm getting sore, right? I could, okay, change my behavior just a little bit. And look at that. Now it's a much bigger piece of sandpaper. Of course, it's completely shot. So let's just actually make this work. So I was sanding on that, and it started to slide really easily on the sanded part, and that shouldn't be what happens. It should bite on there pretty good. So clearly, I was not reinforced for using that tool, but it wasn't because the tool was bad. It's because my sandpaper was bad. So I'm going to put the appropriate sandpaper on here, and hopefully earn a reinforcer for choosing a tool that was more appropriate for the job. Sound a bit familiar? Use the right tool for the job, right? So this is a much more appropriate tool for the job that I'm working on. Now quit teasing me that these things aren't out of here yet. Just let it be, I understand. I still need to open and close the doors. So anyway, I'll get them out of there when the time is right. So now I can get a lot more done in a shorter amount of time. So I can save time. I'm getting reinforced for choosing the appropriate tool for the job. Okay? So this particular tool is producing a result that's reinforcing me. Now, interestingly enough, it's negative reinforcement. Why? Because I'm saving time. I'm losing. I'm spending less time. So I'm essentially losing time in an odd way to think of it. So I could do it with this. I'd get the same result, but it would take forever. Okay, a lot longer, and I would get sore. So I'm avoiding being sore. I'm avoiding spending extra time.
Avoid working harder.
Avoid working harder. So it's work smarter, not harder, right? It's all about negative reinforcement in this particular case. So we got the negative reinforcement set up. If you need to change a behavior, you want to think about what's being reinforced. Okay, so that's the grabbing them by the function piece, right? Then you tweak that. You can either increase it, so increase the amount of reinforcement available for a particular behavior. That behavior is going to go up. You could decrease the reinforcers. You could basically take all the reinforcers away. That has a really interesting effect. That's going to do some really funky stuff to the behavior. That's called extinction. We'll come back to that in another time. But it is something you can do, but it's a challenging procedure because of what's going to happen to the behavior initially. It's actually going to get worse before it gets better in that situation. So sometimes things get worse. The behavior happens more often when you're wanting to reduce it, but that means you did the right thing. We'll come back to that. It's really confusing. So let's see what else. So grabbing them by the function, we got reinforcement. So negative reinforcement, the loss of something that increases the probability of behavior. Now, you need to remember something really important. The behavior of the organism, the person, does not care whether or not you like the stimulus. The person does not care whether or not they like the stimulus. Just because you like something or they like something doesn't mean it's a reinforcer. And just because something is painful, not fun, whatever, also doesn't mean it's not a reinforcer. So there's a lot of things out there that we don't like to do, but it serves to reinforce our behavior of doing it. We get the result. There's some result. There's a function there, right? So just because I'm going to spank a kid for engaging in inappropriate behavior, that doesn't mean it's going to punish it. That spanking might actually serve as a reinforcer because maybe that's the only attention they're getting. Maybe mom and dad ignore these kids until they engage in inappropriate behavior and they slap them across the cheek. Nobody's going to slap across the cheek. Just slap them on the bum, right? So you slap them on the bum and wow, the kiddo just realized all I need to do to get mom and dad's attention is that. They're not going to automatically jump to making the right decisions. They're going to keep doing what they've always done to get your attention. Attention is a huge reinforcer. Now, you can't solve all problems of raising kids in one little video. There's way more to it than what I just said. But it's an example of how even a spanking, a slap, no, I've had enough of you. A lecture to your kids. I'm a great lecturer to my kids. Just ask them. They love it. But the funny thing is when I lecture about inappropriate behavior, they're getting a lot of my undivided attention. Constant. That's a lot of attention, right? It may be negative. It's not anything cool. They don't like it, but they're getting reinforced and they may continue to engage in inappropriate behavior because of that attention I'm providing, if that attention is reinforcing. And here's the thing. You don't know if something is reinforcing until it changes behavior in the future. You don't know if it's going to increase a behavior until the behavior increases. Reinforcement's about the future. It's not about the past. It's not about what's come behind me. It's about what's coming in the future, right? What that behavior is going to do. And you cannot forget that. It's really, really important. So I've spent a lifetime collecting tools for different tasks in the shop, right? I've been reinforced for when I need something. If I need, I need my DA, great. I got my DA. Off it goes, right? So I need the right tool for the job. I've also worked with the wrong tools for the job, and it makes stuff harder. So what I learned was sometimes you just need a DA to do the job most effectively. But you know what? I don't really need a DA. I could use the sandpaper. I could get down in here and do that. But this tool is much more effective at the job. So using the DA, I've been reinforced for using it, right? So both of them produce the effect, but this one produces it quicker, with less work, with less effort, so on and so forth. So I'll go ahead and choose this. Well, that led to a bigger issue of making sure that I have the right tool for the job before I start the job. So what tools do I need to do working on auto body stuff? Well, I've done this for a few years, so I kind of know a few of the things I need. I've got most of those things, as far as I can tell. I don't have anything that I don't know I don't need, which is weird. But the point being that the behavior of buying tools has been reinforced by having the right tool on hand and making my behavior function more, making it easier for me when I engage in that task. And the end result is that the task gets completed and it looks decent when it's done. So we can talk about grabbing them by the function, right? So we talk about grabbing them by the function. This is why it's important. Once you understand what's reinforcing the behavior, then you can kind of do what you want to with it. But one more piece that I think you need to remember is that you have to have control over the reinforcers. Try reinforcing your boss. That's a challenge. The way you're going to reinforce your boss is by working harder, getting more done. Okay? There's all sorts of people you can ask about how to improve your value for the company. So reinforcing your boss can be challenging. You have to be able to be the person that has control in order to get the behavior change. Now you have control over your own behavior. You might have control and influence over other people's behavior. But realize that behavior is often under multiple control. There are a lot of things that control working on a car. There's a lot of things that control wearing gloves. There's a lot of things that control setting up a shop. And you might not have control over all of them. So if you're not getting the behavior change you want, go back to looking at the function. Go back to taking a look at what you can actually affect change on with this person, with yourself, with your dog, with your kid, or whatever it is. Right? And start to think about how can I encourage the appropriate responding, and when the appropriate responding happens, what do you do? And I think that's probably my last point for this video is make sure that you're looking for what's right. If you're not looking for what's right and you're only looking for what's wrong, then you are the problem. Why? Because you're not strengthening the behavior that you want. That can be with yourself or anybody else. Okay? Look for what's right, not just what's wrong. So, and don't forget, you never know what's reinforcing. And don't forget, reinforcement happens in contexts. Okay, so the context of working on a car, these particular tools produce reinforcement for me, but you basically never see me use a DA in the wood shop. Okay, why? Because I don't have a need for it over there. I use other tools for sanding purposes. Anyway, that's all you got today, or that's all you got for this one. Not today, there's probably a lot more. You probably watch these all at the same time, so today is kind of a weird sort of concept in our world. So anyway, see you guys.